What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Vitality Vision podcast, where I invite guests of various backgrounds and life experiences to share their knowledge on how saying yes has impacted their lives. Today joining me is Marlina Garcia, Integrative Nutritionist, who is ready to share her story on all things health relating to mental health, gut health, hormones, and some amazing life advice for us today. So welcome to our podcast, Marlina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you carving out time. I know you have a very busy, productive days, but I appreciate you taking out time to share your story. Those of you who are not familiar yet, Marlina is an integrative nutritionist who works with people to get their gut health and mental health on track. There is so much to this, and it goes beyond just eating right, as I've learned through doing her program myself, how every body, literally every body, is different. So it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. So I'm really excited to learn more from you today, Marlina. And I know our listeners are going to be intrigued when they hear your story on your why in becoming a certified nutritionist. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So before we get into your story, though, I do want to start off by asking a quick question. And I know this is a loaded question, but I'd love to hear your response to this. So the question is, what do you believe is the key to happiness?
Oh, that is a loaded question. um, what do I think is the key to happiness? Um, well, first, I believe that happiness is it's a spiritual connection, right? It's something that we feel in our soul. Um, and just from what I've learned and, trial and error in my own life, I think it's very easy to get caught up in the modern world's idea of happiness, and especially with social media nowadays, people relate happiness to something that's very tangible and materialistic. And I think part of happiness is unlearning basically everything that we've been taught up until this point, unlearning every aspect of our lives, from situations that we go through and the way people treat us, etc. And I guess let me elaborate a little bit more. To me, happiness is learning how to just be in love. And I don't mean like be in love with a spouse or be in love with yourself. Those things are important. But what I mean is be, comma, in love, like just exist in love. And the only way for us to do that is to unlearn everything that we're taught and everything that we're told from the time that we're born, right? I think it's very easy to label situations, and it's almost second nature for us to label these things that happen in our life as good and as bad, when in reality things just are. Things just happen.
Right.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to show up in the world and how we want to show up in these situations, and we are the ones assigning good and bad labels to our life experiences. So I think it's just learning to just be, like, to get out of our own heads, get out of our minds, and just be in the world in love.
I love that. I got chills when you were just talking about unlearning, and especially that part of just being. It's so true. And I feel like our generation is super, our generation and the generations to follow are so immersed in the social media culture
Mhm.
and just caught up in like what comes next and immediate satisfaction and immediate gratification, where they don't just sit in their thoughts and just like chill.
Right,
So that is,
right.
dang, I love that.
It's true though.
I was just going to say, we just had a lot of conversations on this, and I feel like our lives are really parallel to one another. And
Mhm.
I think we do have a lot in common. We've talked about, our upbringing and situations that have happened to us recently, and just a lot of things getting into with our spirituality. And one thing that I do admire about you, and that I really want our listeners to hear, is that I feel like you've really taken your past, and you don't have to elaborate on this at all, but you've taken your past and you've turned it into something good, which I don't think a lot of people do. And I think so many people, unfortunately, can't get past their traumas or don't face their realities head on. And I know that that's scary, but it makes me really sad when people will use their past as an excuse to not do something or to
Mhm.
not strive for their goals or to just simply say no to opportunities in life. So, do you have any advice for people that are trying to work through their past or current struggles? And if possible, if you're open, do you mind sharing how your past positively influenced your life now?
Yeah, absolutely. Advice that I would give, I think you just have to feel it. And I know that there will be people who relate to this, because for me, my survival technique was to suppress everything, right? So
Oh, totally.
if it didn't exist to me, I would just shove it down and I would keep pushing, and I genuinely just never thought about anything. If it felt bad, and bad quote unquote, if it felt bad, I just wouldn't feel it. I would just completely ignore it. So I think
Right.
step one would be to feel it. I am a huge believer in therapy. I think everybody should have a therapist. Everybody should be going to therapy regularly. And if you don't want to do that, hire a coach or something. But I don't think that it's possible to learn from your past and to grow from your mistakes if you're not annoyingly honest with yourself. And that can be something that's triggering for people too, because oftentimes when we're vulnerable and when we're honest with people, if you don't have a good track record, or there's people in your life that broke your trust, it is difficult to be honest and vulnerable even with just ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to really learn from your past is, yes, you have to feel it. You have to acknowledge that people have hurt you, and that bad things have happened to you. But you also have to acknowledge the role that you play at a certain point as well.
For sure.
And I think for me, just getting dramatically honest, like, this is where I have room to improve. And yes, my story has pain and trauma, like everyone's.
Right.
But what do I have control over, and what can I change in my situation? And I
Yeah.
had a rough relationship with my parents growing up. And I was divorced by the age of 21, so I've definitely experienced quite a bit. But again, I feel like labeling situations as good or bad is just so backwards for our growth, right?
Yeah.
Because every situation, even the bad ones that we feel are bad, are an opportunity for us to go to school and take lessons from that. So I would say, just feel it, feel what you feel. Don't try to push it out. Work through it. It's funny, and I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but it's
No,
funny
love it.
because when I first started going to therapy, this was like almost 3 years ago now. I talked about things, obviously, with my therapist that I normally wouldn't talk about with people, or in that way talk about it. And I
Hmm.
started to open up a little bit more to my circle, to my friends, and to my support systems. And people get very uncomfortable when you start to transition out of your comfort zone, and when you start to grow out of what they're used to you being. And I would hear things like, God, like, you're just so stuck in the past, and just like unsupportive, unempathetic things. And now looking back, I'm like, well, yeah, how could they possibly understand what I was doing? They've never done it. Like, it's
Right.
it's a very specific process. And the only way for it to work is for us to just be super honest with ourselves
Absolutely.
and with our support system, whoever it is, a therapist or a coach, whatever the case may be.
Dang.
Did
Yeah.
that answer your question?
No, it totally did. I mean, honestly, I feel like that was helpful for even me because I think that's one thing that people don't do is just you said be annoyingly honest with yourself. And it is. It's like it's a constant reminder and it's a constant commitment that you make every single day when you wake up to be like, "Hey, we're going to keep moving forward. Hey, what can
Hmm.
you do to make sure that you are on track mentally today?
Yes.
What can you
Hmm.
do to make sure that you are in the moment? And I think that that's important, but also taking your past, right? And not forgetting the past, but almost using it to help you push you forward, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
I really, really like that. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too, as you get older. I mean, I'm an old soul, but as especially just as I'm growing out of my 20s, I think the reason that therapy is so powerful, or having a coach, do something like what I do, is so powerful, is because a lot of the times for people like me and people like you who have experienced so much at such a young age, we
Hmm.
grow up never really feeling true validation, and having somebody say, you know what, yes, what you went through was wrong and it was unfair and you didn't deserve it. And when you grow up never hearing that, whether you're confiding, for me, whether it's confiding in a parent or a grandparent or a cousin, never having somebody say, like, no, that you're absolutely right, that should have never happened.
Yeah,
It changes you. So to go and reach out to somebody who is healthy and is able to actually give you the support that you need, I think it's just that validation that really changes everything. It gives you permission to feel what you feel, when somebody tells you that it is valid.
absolutely. So that's, yeah, I've been there, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have been there as well. And it's like maybe they just haven't taken the time to look at their past traumas or their
Hmm.
past in the face and be like, hey, I actually, this is something that I need to work on. And maybe this is
Hmm.
why I react this way, or maybe this is why I talk this way, or maybe this is why I say no to this or say no to that, So there's just, I feel like our childhood is really um, a big influence on who we become as adults. And a lot of people
Hmm.
think, well, your past doesn't define you. It's not that it defines you; it's that it really does influence who you become as an adult. And if those
Hmm.
things and those characteristics that we're taking are from a traumatic experience, then we have work to do. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So
Yes.
when you realize this, I know you've been involved in nutrition now. You've been interested for about 10 years, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so you've been interested in it, but what made you decide on a career in nutrition? Because I know we're talking about mental health, but now you started turning this into something relating to gut health and hormone health. So can you tell us a little bit about why you decided on a career in this?
Yeah. So back in the end of 2017, 20, so 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I got really
Mm-hmm.
sick.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know, time flies. I got really sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I have a lot of beef with the healthcare industry because of this whole situation, but we'll get more into that in a second. But it
Okay.
took about 6 months for me to get a diagnosis. I went into the doctor repeatedly. I felt off. I felt super tired. I was getting like intense chills. I was waking up in like drenched in sweat in the middle of the night. I just felt almost like I had like an infection or something. I felt
Yeah.
wrong. Eventually, I was diagnosed with a bacterial infection. It's called C. diff, which is, it's not something to take lightly. I was lucky in the sense that I'm young and my immune system was pretty resilient, but thousands of people
Hmm.
die from this infection every year. It's not something that doctors take lightly. And I remember the doctor telling me, you have to be religious with your medicine because this could kill you. And I was offended because I was taking my health seriously. I was begging for answers. And there's this stigma in the, maybe stigma is not the right word. There's this reputation of doctors that they don't listen to you, and that was my personal experience, is that they weren't listening to me. They saw me seemingly healthy. I was active, I was in the gym. So, you probably just have a stomach bug, go home. Long story short, by the time I was treated for it, it was so bad that I was basically being pushed into like full blown lupus, which is an autoimmune disorder.
Yeah.
I was testing completely positive, like there was no question that I had lupus. I was on all these different types of medications. The C. diff is it's a bacterial infection that you get in your gut. And what sparked my interest in creating my company, which is Revive and Thrive, I started working with a holistic doctor. So he's an integrative doctor. So he's half holistic medicine, half Western medicine, right? So
Hmm.
he put me on this really strict diet that just stressed me out, honestly, more than anything, because I was like, what the hell can I eat on this damn diet? It was like chicken and like rice and vegetables, and that was it.
Oh my gosh.
Which I've always been pretty healthy, but that just seemed extremely restricted to me. But by this point, by the time I started working with that doctor, it was already the beginning of 2020. So what, we're 3 years into this infection that I cannot seem to get rid of.
Yeah.
And within 3 months, I was back at the gym. And I had been out of the gym for over a year.
Wow.
I was completely depressed because your gut bacteria plays a role in every aspect of your body, from your brain chemistry to your adrenal gland. It's just everything. It controls your hormones, it controls your gut health, or your mental health, I mean. And I was just a mess. I was depressed. My anxiety was through the roof. I never had experienced anxiety the way that I did when I was sick. And within 3 months, I felt like a completely different person. And
Wow.
all of that was because of my diet and changing my nutrition. So I became very passionate about it because it didn't make sense to me why more doctors aren't teaching this. Why are more doctors not educating us on
Um,
how to heal ourselves through food,
right.
and the simple answer is that that's not what they're taught. That's not their structure, right?
Right.
They work with the pharmaceutical companies, so they're trained on what pharmaceuticals work for certain things. They're not trained at all in nutrition. So even now I have clients, well, my doctor didn't tell me to eat that. Yeah, but your doctor doesn't know anything about nutrition. And that's not me being arrogant. It's just true.
Right.
And so I just felt like I had a responsibility to share this information, because there's so many people out there who have full-blown lupus, or they have Crohn's disease, or they have insane amounts of anxiety to the point where they can't function in the world. And it's like, I have an answer for you so you can
Right.
actually function again and feel like a person.
That is, yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people that choose a career, it's typically because they're passionate, right? But you had a really extreme experience that kind of pushed you in that direction. And I feel like that's what's so great about your company is, from what I have been able to tell through working with you one on one and doing your program, is that you make sure that the program is tailored for that person and for their specific needs. Which, you're right, a lot of doctors don't do that. They just say, well, it sounds like it could be this, so we're going to give you this little pill and send you on
Hmm.
your way. So yeah, I definitely think diet, especially now after being involved now for about a month in your program, I see a difference in myself. And I did want to get more into that as well. So, since you are a professional in this field now, what are your thoughts on this whole diet culture? Because there's so many different fads that are out there today, like a one size fits all program. Like, you do these protein shakes and then you have these snacks throughout the day, you're going to be good. What are your thoughts on that in terms of related to health versus like maybe weight loss, maybe relating to hormones? What are your thoughts on those things?
Oh,
Another
I'm
loaded
glad you
one, I
asked
know.
me this. No, I'm so glad you asked this question, because I can't obviously always relay my opinions the same way to clients. But honestly, diets, they piss me off. Like, they genuinely upset me, because you're totally misleading people to believe that there is this one size fits all solution to an issue that you don't even know what the issue is. And what I mean by that is, let's say I have a client who is overweight, right? They want to lose 50 pounds, but I also have a client who can't keep weight on. Her goal is to gain 15.
Hmm.
The foods that they eat more than likely aren't going to match each other perfectly, right?
Right.
But the reason behind their weight issues might. And what I mean by that is, 9 times out of 10, somebody's issue with their weight has nothing to do with food. It has to do with the relationship that they have with the food. It has to do with the relationship that they have with themselves. But it's typically not about the food. So, how are you going to tell me
Hmm.
that this diet is going to fix the issue that is creating my client to be overweight or to not be able to keep weight on? And
Right.
and from a scientific standpoint, our bodies, everybody's body is so unique. There's a term for it. It's called bio individuality. And
Hmm.
that literally means that everybody's body is completely different. You can look exactly like someone else, have the same shape, have the same figure, but your genetics and the cells in your body are not going to be exactly the same, right? So
Yeah.
um, I believe, and this is the whole foundation of my business, is that um, we know as individuals what we need to heal. Whether it's a medical issue or it's an emotional issue, if we learn how to get in touch with ourselves and really become aware of what's going on inside of us, your body will tell you clear as day what it needs to heal. Right. And being
Right.
overweight, no, it's not the worst thing in the world, but that is a health concern. And if somebody is overweight or underweight, it is something that should be taken seriously, right? But what is the root of
Right.
that? And more than that, I don't think that there, and this is again, these are just, this is how I created my company with this mindset, is that I don't think there's any mistakes in the universe. I think everything is exactly the way that it's supposed to be.
Right.
Problems arise when we as humans who, think that we're smarter than everything else, when we start to get involved, right? We're creating all of this genetically modified food and we're labeling it as healthy. Only 10 calories. Yeah, but what are the calories? What are those
Right.
calories made of? Is it even food? 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's all chemicals and genetically made food, right? And as I started to learn more about this, it blew my mind because this is an industry that is allowed to happen. And you have these scientists in these factories who are literally designed, like ding dongs, for example. They are designed to be addicting. Like they're
Yes.
made for people to get addicted to. And it's
No
just, it's
wonder.
a problem that, right? No, and it's like, it's so true. Like, and there are studies that have been done that show the parts of the brain that deal with, sugar and processed food. And when you quit sugar or you quit processed food, the area in your brain that starts to panic is the same area that would be triggered if you were to quit heroin. That
Wow.
is how powerful this genetically made food is. And it's a multi-billion dollar industry. They make so much money on this because not only are we addicted to it, but then guess where we're going to go? We're going to go to the doctor and we're going to feed the pharmaceutical industry because they're
Yeah.
giving us all these pills to hide the symptoms, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, our health is still deteriorating. So it really is it's so much more than just the food. You can do keto all day long, but do you actually understand why you're eating what you're eating? Do you understand that
Right.
there's nourishment within these different types of foods? And it's, to me, if you have an issue with food in any way, you have to change your whole lifestyle and you have to change your whole mindset around food. Diets are, oh, for example, I'll give you an example. I had a family member who was on this diet called Optavia. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
It basically is a 500 calorie a day diet, and you drink these little protein shakes, and I think they give you like little snack bars or something that you can have throughout the day, but you're not to exceed 500 calories a day.
Oh my
um,
goodness.
it, an infant, a toddler eats 1200 calories a day. 500 calories is not sustainable. And this person who was on this diet was hospitalized within 3 months of being on this diet, had to have her gallbladder removed, and to this day is still suffering from health issues from being
Oh
on that
my
diet.
gosh.
Diets are not the answer. You have to understand what the issue really is. If you have an autoimmune disease, it is your gut health. If you have high anxiety, it is your gut health. And there are certain foods and certain things that trigger that health to be off, right? And
Yeah.
even with, if you're overweight, or even if you're underweight, your body's more than likely not absorbing the food, right? So that's a gut problem. If you're overweight, I guarantee you have tons of inflammation going on in your body. That is a
Right.
gut health issue. Everything stems from your gut health. You don't need a diet. You need to eat the way our bodies were intended to eat. I mean, like, what were the cave people eating? Right?
Right.
Like, we weren't eating food made from factories. We were eating berries and fish and
Yep.
meat, and you know what I mean? So, I think it's just educating people and teaching them that if you change your lifestyle, your weight is going to follow. Whether you're looking to gain or lose weight,
Yeah.
your weight will fluctuate, right? If you're eating the
Hmm.
way our bodies were made to eat.
That's so crazy because yeah, I mean, I totally looked at food differently prior to, hearing what you had to say and learning from you. And I feel like I'm just learning more right now. But I totally, yeah, I would seriously sit there and go, okay, well, I want to look a little more muscular, and I want to feel strong. I want to be able to lift heavier at the gym, because it was just something I wanted to accomplish. It's not because it
Yeah.
was necessarily for vanity reasons. I just wanted to feel strong, and with that
Mhm.
feeling strong comes looking strong, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I probably just need to eat more protein, or I just need to eat more this. And while all that like possibly could have been true, I really didn't know, like you're saying, like I didn't know how that was going to affect my body and how that was going to affect, my gut and then my mind. And, so I think your whole, your whole business is encompassed around the idea of balance, right? Between mental health and between gut health. And also, too, I know you're also involved when it comes to hormones as well. So, how does gut health relate to hormones in that sense?
Mhm. Um, Good question. And I just want to touch real quick on something that you said about,
Okay.
you were mentioning how when you work out, you want to get stronger. So in your head, oh, I need to live, I need to eat more protein.
Right.
And I just wanted to touch on that because there, especially in the fitness industry, and I know you've been super involved, but there's a lot of misconceptions around nutrition in the fitness industry. I feel like it's in a lot of ways can be toxic,
Hmm.
the way the fitness industry approaches food. But the question that I want people to ask and that I teach my clients is, what though is the nutrition or the nutrient content of the protein that you're getting? Because back when, in 2017, I was at my best weight, my healthiest weight, I was at my healthiest gym strength, right? I was
Hmm.
drinking 2 or 3 weight gain protein shakes a day. And I just recently did some research into the ingredients because I didn't know shit about that back then. And I just recently did some research. It's all processed. Like, there's
Oh,
not one
geez.
natural ingredient in that protein shake. Like, it's all processed and genetically made. So, yes, I was getting tons and tons of protein, but that wasn't actually benefiting my health. It was just
Right.
making me gain weight, right? So, as far as gut health goes into hormone health, so for me in particular, when I got sick with the infection, my hormone health was completely off. And the tricky thing for men and women is that, so let's say that you're feeling a little funky and the doctor like, is suspicious that you're having a hormone imbalance, right?
Right.
They're going to give you blood work. But the problem is that what is normal, like the normal range that they have for women within our age group, it's a range. So what's normal for Susie Lou down the street is not necessarily going to be normal for Ciela, right? Like, it's, your bodies are totally
Right.
different. So doctors can only do so much. They can't pinpoint, well, 3 years ago this was your hormone level, so you're obviously off. They have no idea. They're basically just shooting from the hip.
Hmm.
For me, the way that I can help clients with hormone imbalance is their symptoms. There's very, very telltale symptoms that come with a hormone imbalance. If you fix your gut, it's gonna fix your hormones because your gut is the hub of everything. So as more research goes into it, and as the gut is being studied more, they're saying that it is actually more in control of our mental and physical health than even our brain is.
Wow.
It operates completely separate to everything in our body. It's like literally its own ecosystem. It's amazing. And the bacteria in our gut is so damn smart, that it will literally outsmart even medications. The only thing that our gut bacteria
Wow.
cannot outsmart is starving it, and the only way for us to starve it is to eat nutrient dense food. um, our gut is directly related to our brains, right? So if our brain is the one that's responsible for releasing all of these chemicals, and our adrenal gland, it helps out with our adrenal glands, everything's connected, right? If your gut bacteria is healthy, it's going to help you rebalance everything in your system. So your sleep is going to improve. Your dopamine and serotonin is going to level out. So you're going to start to feel depression lift. Your adrenal glands are going to be able to regulate more. So you're not going to feel as much anxiety. Um, your stomach is going to feel better, obviously. It's
Yeah.
just everything is so interconnected, and it's such a delicate ecosystem. Everything has to go back to the gut, in
Yeah.
order for anything else to play out.
Interesting. Okay. So I knew I knew just a tiny bit of what you're saying, but I mean, just going back to the whole how it's connected and as far as, your gut to your mind, controlling your mind, like I never would have thought something like that. And you're so right that literally all of our systems are connected. So that's really, really interesting. And you actually answered my next question I was going to ask you is
Oh,
I was going to ask, if there was anything that you wanted to debunk about health and myths. Did you want to add anything to that though? Is there anything
um,
else that you can think of that any regarding like healthy eating? I think you covered a lot about diet culture and gut health and how that's totally intertwined with mental health as well.
I think the only thing that I would add is that, and it's the one part that we didn't touch on, and that's our relationships that we keep in our life. Um, and I don't even want to say the word relationships, because I feel like it's so much bigger than our relationships. It's about genuine and authentic connection. You cannot have health without being authentically connected to your tribe. And this isn't just like a theory that I have, that like this is a proven fact, that humans just, we do not operate at our fullest capacity if we don't have that authentic connection with our people. And we hold so much emotion in our gut. And I said it's extremely smart, our gut. It's literally its own entity. And if you have a lot of grief, or you have a lot of guilt or regret or sadness or pain, and you haven't processed that, you hold all of that in your stomach. It becomes a part of your cellular makeup. And this, I don't know if you've ever seen studies where they show you the looks of like a tear under a microscope, right?
No.
They'll have you cry into a cup of water, and they'll have different people cry for different reasons. One person will cry for sadness, another person will cry out of joy, another person will cry out of fear. And when you look at the tears under a microscope, each tear has its own unique makeup, almost like a snowflake. It's
What?
completely, it's amazing. And it really does become a part of our cellular makeup, is to not process our emotions and connect with people. And if you don't process emotions and you don't process trauma, it's extremely difficult to have authentic connections with people, because
Wow.
you're constantly operating from a place of survival.
Yeah.
And you might not feel that way. You might be like, oh, well, I have great friends. Like, yeah, you do, but are you authentically connected to them?
Right.
Can you call them about your deepest, darkest secrets and not be met with like crickets? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And again, vulnerability is difficult. And the only way for you to get to a place of comfortability with that is to be vulnerable and to work through your shit ultimately. But there is one study that I found really interesting about a family in Italy. They studied this particular family for 3 generations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Italy, as you know, they're big on pastas and butters and wines,
Yes.
and they
All the good
love to
stuff.
eat. And they studied these people who just had like phenomenal health in Italy. Like they had the best health. They had no heart disease.
Kind of like
Kind of,
Eat, Pray, Love. That.
kinda,
Yeah.
yeah,
Julia Roberts
yeah,
movie. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
kind
I'm
of like
following.
that, yeah.
I'm following.
They had no heart disease. They had no high cholesterol. They had no high blood pressure, and they were eating all of these foods from their culture. And they were baffling scientists, because they were like, "How do you guys have such great health?"
The answer is
And
pasta.
right, and wine. Well, it turns out over these 3 generations, so these people, they have kids, and then their kids moved, they immigrated to America, and they followed them here in the States, and then those kids had kids. And when they had kids, the second generation, their health started to decline. They started to have high cholesterol and high blood pressure, and nothing had changed as far as their habits and their food. They were still making Italian food. They were still eating very similar to
Hmm.
what their generation before them did. The only thing that really dramatically changed was their sense of community. because they were no longer in their little small town of Italy where they had their friends and their neighbors and their family to depend on. They were completely by themselves here in America and another country where they didn't have access to that tribe anymore. And that is what scientists found made such a huge difference in their health, like their
Wow.
actual physical health, was that back in Italy, if you had to go into work real quick, you could just go tell the neighbor, hey, can you watch my kid for me? Right. And there was no sense of that stress of always having to do everything on your own and
Right.
basically be on your own all the time. And then they moved here and it was like this whole new world for them. And that sense of community and connection was taken. And scientists believe that that's what contributed to this major shift in their health was that lack of connection.
Wow. That is crazy.
So connection
So
is powerful, is what I'm saying.
so you're no, so what you're saying is I can eat all the pasta I want as long as I'm close with my friends and fam, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. That's exactly what I meant.
No, that's so crazy because I mean, yeah, going back to the beginning of just talking about, we're talking about gut health, we're talking about mental health and how it's all related and stuff, but that mental health, and you're talking about, dealing with past traumas and facing it head on, being annoying with yourself and saying, hey, like we need to get through this. And then also keeping those relationships close to you, the ones that are valuable and the ones that are going to bring you closer to that spiritual connection within yourself and just being happy. I never
Yes.
would have thought that being around certain people really does affect you. And it's so true. Like when you can tell, like when you're around certain individuals or, groups of people, you can just tell like this isn't my tribe. That's why people say find your
Mhm.
tribe, love them hard. And
Mhm.
it really is true. That's what causes kind of that feeling. And I'm sure this where this phrase comes from, where it says, man, like it just makes my stomach uneasy, or I get this pit in my stomach, or I have like, this feeling in my gut.
Yes.
And it's so true. Like people can bring out those feelings in you, and it makes sense that it is connected to your gut. It
Yes.
makes sense that
Yes.
when we're stressed, maybe some of us will eat like ice cream, like it's going out of style, right? Maybe when
Yes.
we're stressed, we don't eat. Maybe when we're stressed, our stomach starts to hurt. So that is
Mhm.
insane how your mental well being really does go along with your gut. That's,
It
man.
does. It does. And and like I mentioned earlier, your body knows what it needs. Your spirit knows what it needs. And earlier you asked me, what do I feel the key to happiness is? And I think for me, one of the most powerful shifts in my mindset was understanding that I am a spirit, right? I have a soul and I'm in a human body. Like I'm just experiencing life from a human standpoint.
Totally.
But and I mentioned I was super super depressed. Like when I tell you I was depressed, I mean like I'm not kidding. I would fantasize about driving into oncoming traffic.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
I was not in a good spot at all.
Thank
Um
God you
and
didn't.
and what like looking at my life now, I'm like not that much has changed. Like on a day-to-day level, not that much in my life has changed. The only thing that has shifted is the way that I show up for myself now and the way that I show
Right.
up in the world.
Right.
And you can't operate from this place of autopilot, which is what 90% of the population does. They just operate on autopilot. They do things every day. They don't know why. They put no thought into it. They just do it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't operate from that level and reach optimal health. You just can't. And that's my whole, foundation of Revive and Thrive is it's not a diet. It doesn't I could give a shit what you look like. How do you feel? Are
Yeah.
you happy when you wake up in the morning? Are you stoked to go make your breakfast because you love what you're nourishing your body with?
Right.
Do you have good connections around you? So it is so much more. Gut health is so much more than food. Everything affects our gut.
Yeah.
Even like you said, you get that, you'll get like that tummy turning feeling if you're around somebody that triggers your anxiety. Your stomach will sink a little bit. That's your
Mm-hmm.
gut telling you like, hey, this isn't for you. It's our gut is just so extremely powerful. It blows my mind.
You're blowing my mind just by the things that you're saying today, honestly. Like, man, I'm gonna have to listen to this one back over and over and over again because there's so many different things that you said that I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. So I guess my last question for you is, do you have any new ventures coming up in the near future that you'd like to share, or do you have any lasting thoughts that you'd like to share?
New ventures, no. I'm really just committed to, I'm always a student, right? So I'm really committed to my own journey because I feel like that allows me to be a better coach to um these amazing people who come to me. But no, I mean ventures. I'm still building my business. I plan to expand into different areas as time goes on. But more than anything, all I want is for people to have access to this information because everybody deserves to feel what I feel through this program. I'm not the type of coach who hasn't tried everything, right? I try everything that I preach. So if I'm preaching it,
Yeah.
it's because I live it.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is just a human right. Everybody deserves to feel this way. I make it accessible. I make it make sense for everybody. I'm not a corporation or something like that. I genuinely care. But as far as ventures, just, follow me on Instagram and stay tuned.
For sure. I'll make sure I put that in the description. Well, thank you so, so much for joining us today. It's been awesome learning
Thank
from
you
you
for
as
having
always.
me.
I look forward to seeing you help others, revive and thrive, girl. I know I'm super cheesy, but
I liked
in all,
it.
in all seriousness, though, really appreciate you just sharing your thoughts on this because I feel like that conversation is necessary. So many people have these misconceptions out there that I feel like you just debunked on the spot. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Hey everyone, hope you were able to absorb all that Marlena had to